Smaller notebooks can be super useful, but if you haven't used them before, coming up with layouts can be a little bit challenging. Hi team, it's Jess or Jashikaran here, and today we're going to be looking at over 25 different layout ideas for your A6 notebook. But if you specifically wanted ideas for what to use your notebook for, then check out the blog post that's listed in the description box. In that one we have over 50 ideas for just the theme of the notebook. For instance, using it as a swatch book, as a car maintenance log, or for low commitment journaling. For what we're looking at here though, we're going to focus on the actual structure of the layouts, so that you can recreate these for your purposes specifically. So flipping on over, we notably have a year at a glance, but this doesn't just have to be for having a reference for when each day of the year falls. I like to use these types of layouts for recording common occurrences. So when I was a teacher, that could have been when the holidays were, could have been when I had my sick days, when we had staff only days. Of course, you can just have it as a reference, but I find that it has a lot more functionality than that. So putting in a year at a glance style layout could be useful. Flipping over, the next type of layout we have has the page sectioned out into 3 spaces, and I've labeled these with the initials for the months of the year. Notably, only 6 months fits on one spread, so you might need 2 if you want to do all 12. Or if you want to see the entire 12 months at once, you just split each of the pages in half vertically as well. This could be used as kind of a future log, or a birthdays log, or a place to record any memories. Effectively, as we flip through, you can just ignore any of the headers that I have on these pages because they can be used in a lot of different ways. This one here is another type of overview for a 6-month period. So we have numbers 1 through 31 along the top, and then these all cap off at different points based on how many days are actually in each month. You could use this as a calendex, or it could be some kind of tracker for daily happenings. Say if you're trying to build 4 separate habits and recording them on here, or you could also turn this into some type of bar graph, where each of the little boxes represents a certain amount of something. After this, the next idea we have is a grid style layout. I've done this as a 24 in 2024, so 24 boxes to record 24 things that you want to get done. And you could also set this up as a list as well. Technically speaking, these 2 pages could work together, so a list form of whatever it is you're trying to achieve, and then a kind of more graphic representation. This style of layout also could work for social media planning, especially thinking for Instagram if you take off one of these columns. So drawing out some little thumbnails to show the things that you want to post over there, and then having the list to describe them and check them off as you've made them. After the grid style and the list style, the next one we have is a schedule. For this one we have 7 columns to kind of represent the 7 days of the week, and then timestamps down the side. This could be used to set up an ideal weekly schedule, or it could be one week in particular, so you set this up again and again with each passing week. And then this layout is a similar weekly schedule type deal, except it's broken up into 2 different life areas, so work versus home, has a space for each day of the week, and then a space for the week as a whole. These 2 could be used in combination with each other, so time blocks for doing stuff, and then the stuff that actually has to get done. Or you could expand either one of them so they individually take up a full spread. If you are going to be color coding your little schedule, it might be good to have a key with this, so maybe this side could turn into a key. But if you are using the layout over and over again, you will quickly become accustomed to your key and the colors that you're using for different things. Flipping over, the next idea we have is an Alistair method, where we have a column for each of the months of a set period. So I've just used initials to represent those months, and then a list of things that need to be done in every month. This style of layout is one of my favorites to use in my journal, either for monthly things like we have here, or I can use it for projects with repeated things that have to be done. For me, that'd be video making, so I'd put the video titles here, and then the different stages of having to complete things for those videos. But as you can see, this one is set up to be more of a monthly task list. If you're thinking about things that you want to do weekly though, weekly tasks could be set up like this. This one is based on a half-year snapshot, so 13 dots in each of the rows for 26 weeks per each of the tasks. Because there's a little bit of extra space left over, you could put in an icon or a kind of signifier, identifier for each of those things. But then there's also space to write out what the thing is as well. As you complete the weekly task though, you can just check it off, and if it doesn't get done, maybe you could cross it off. This kind of list could be themed, so maybe it's just housework related or things related to your profession. As you can expect, it really depends on what you're using your little journal for. After this one, the next idea we have is a weekly tracker. Again, this one is based on 26 weeks just because of the smaller size of the notebook, but if you wanted to do the entire year as a whole, you just spread this over 2 pages. So week 1 through 26 here, and then 27 to 52 on the other side. The actual tracker itself here only takes up half of a page. You could of course expand this so it takes up the full page, but this leaves some room to specify what your scale is for the little graph, put in a start and end date, and also have some journaling space for any findings you have. The layout on the right hand side though just highlights another way that you can split your page. So this one takes the page, splits it into 4 sections, and then this one is being used as a when did I last. So each of the little boxes would be used to record the last time you did something, and that something is described in the little header bar. A layout like this though doesn't have to be used as a when did I last. It could be used for a quarterly tracker, so quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 6 occurrences of having done something. For instance, doing a certain thing 2 times a month. So 2 times in January, February, March for quarter 1, and then the same for quarter 2, and so on. When it comes to finding inspiration for layouts online, we kind of want to look beyond just the header of the page that the creator has given us, because a lot of the time we can find inspiration for layouts we're trying to build for ourselves just based on the structure of the ones we're being shown. For instance, this guy here is a year in pixels. So we have a little box for each of the days of the year. And most typically, a year in pixels is used as a mood tracker. But if you don't want to track your mood, you can use a year in pixels for a bunch of other things. For instance, let's just say you wanted to use it for savings. So putting a different color dot or coloring in the box based on how much you saved on each of those days. If you saved nothing, then you'd give it a certain color. If you saved $10, you'd give it a certain color. 20, a different color. Other examples of how you could use this though is a contact log. So did I actually reach out and make contact with my friends and family on every day of the year? It could be done as a reading tracker, so how many pages did I read? Hopefully you can kind of see how the structure of the layout can be used in a myriad of ways. That being said, there are some styles of layouts that pretty much only get used one way. For instance, this guy, which is a grid spacing guide. This layout effectively just shows you how you can split your page in different amounts. So these black lines represent halves, both vertically and horizontally, and then we have the light grey lines which represent thirds. The divisions you put on a page like this are completely up to you, but when you set it up, make sure you consider which ones are actually going to be helpful. For instance, quarterly might be quite helpful, going horizontally, or sectioning the page into 4 boxes, but doing quarterly with vertical lines doesn't really give us a lot of writing space, so I didn't put it on this layout. Flipping over though, another structure we have is a bar graph. And I've set this one up so that it tracks each of the months of the year, but you could also do this to track a 12-week period or 12 days in a row. But as with any typical bar graph, the height of the bar, or in this case I guess width, represents the amount that something was done. So any statistic that you're tracking that's kind of numerical, pages read, steps taken, cups of water drank, whatever it is you want to keep track of. Another style of monthly type page is one where we have 3 lines per each of the months, and then a little space left over at the bottom. And as you can see, this top section is split into 2 halves, so we can see the entire year as a whole. This one is set up with the intention of being a tracker, so different icons to represent different things you're keeping track of, and then using either a grey dot or a black dot over the top to represent whether it happened. For this one, a black dot means that it didn't get done, and a grey dot means that it did. This is effectively a fun way to keep track of monthly happenings, similar to what we had on this layout, except on this one you have this many tasks. On this one, you have this many tasks. It can be good to consider how the structure of your layout can lend itself to the amount of data you actually want to track. We can tweak this style a little bit though, so still sticking with the 2 columns principle, but expanding the amount of space for each of the months into something like this, which is more of a checklist style. So we have 2 columns of checklists, but they're sectioned out so we have each of the months of the year. Again, this can be used to record things that you want to happen, or it could be a little snapshot of each month with 4 little memories or something like that. Remember, all of these titles can be ignored, and we really want to consider how could I use this layout for myself. It is also good to note that we're working in an A6 here, but you can scale all of these up and use them in your regular journal too. This one here is another weekly layout where we have 3 columns, and then each of the days of the week going down the page, with a little bit of space left over so you can put in a key or any additional notes, whatever you need, but this one in particular is set up to be a meal plan. So you can probably see that the page is shiny. That's because we have some book contact paper over this, and it makes the layout reusable. That means that over the top of that shiny section, I can use either a permanent marker or a dry erase marker right on top of it, and then once I'm done with it, I can wipe over it to erase it. That in itself has a lot of applications, but flipping over, when it comes to monthly snapshots, there are a lot of different ways we can do this. This is one of the possible structures, so 4 columns per page, and then the number of rows that you need to capture an entire month. And flipping over to the next one, you can see this is similar, but we've just expanded the amount of space we take vertically. Another style of monthly has a smaller calendar, and then a line for each of the days of the month. This one gives you a little bit more writing space horizontally for each of those days, which could be more preferable. When coming up with new layout ideas, what you can do is just take something that you typically use, say this one, and then rearrange things so it's a little different. So in this one we have the mini calendar at the top on the right hand page, but if we flip over, you can see this one has it moved to slightly lower on the left hand page. This also means a rearranging of each of those lines for each day. It has the same spaces, but they're just arranged differently. As the title suggests, you could use this for a line a day, or you could use it for a monthly log, or anything that you want to record on a monthly basis. If having the actual calendar on your monthly style layout isn't really something you need though, you could go with a layout like this. It has a mini calendar, just so you can kind of see where each of the weeks are, but then the month is captured on a week per week basis rather than a day per day. For each of the weeks, you can record things that need to happen, things that are going on, and then you also have a space for this month in general versus next month. Those are monthly snapshots, but we can also think about the same thing for weeklies. There are a lot of different ways that we can capture a week in this little notebook. This one's fairly simple. It just splits each of the pages in half, both vertically and horizontally, so that you have 8 sections, one for each day of the week and one for notes. But a different style for weekly capture would be just doing that on one page. So in half vertically and then into quarters horizontally. 8 spaces, and then on this side it is infinite possibility. You could just leave it as a simple list with no divider, or as I've done here, I've divided it in half so you effectively double up how much you can write, depending on the size of your handwriting and the length of the entries you're trying to add. This one is another style of weekly, which is a little bit different. So instead of dividing things into just halves or halves and quarters, this one is halves and thirds. 7 boxes here. Combined these 2 to make a note section, and then combined these 3 to make a to-do list. This kind of modular style is really how I look at a lot of my layouts, so thinking about dividing the page into a certain number of boxes, and then combining boxes to make larger sections. The next layout is another style of weekly log. This one has a smaller space for each of the 7 days, and then uses the Alistair method to record the task list. So a column for each of the days of the week. You just put a dot underneath the relevant initial for whichever day it is that you want to get those tasks done. There's also a smaller space here for a to-do list where the day maybe doesn't matter, or just general things you want to specify before the week starts that need to happen. If you need more horizontal space to write though, then something like this style of weekly log could be useful. Rather than doing a vertical division of the page at all, we've opted out from that, using the full spread for just 4 sections per page. If you're still not sure what you want to use a small notebook like this for though, then the blog post we have in the description box is worth checking out. Or if you're now just wondering about what kinds of collections you could set up in your journal, then we do have a separate video on that one. That video is linked on screen here, so click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.